I was the last human badass stubborn enough to survive on a planet so dead it'd make a black hole jealous. Clithera, a frozen hellscape where machines rot and aliens wouldn't dare tread. Then, boom, a trillion-credit alien heiress crash lands in my backyard, her ship a smoking wreck, her red skin screaming royalty, and those freaky glowing eyes locking onto me like I'm her savior. She's a galactic billionaire running from a warlord who'd gut stars to own her, and she drops this bomb. You human, you're my ticket to screw the galaxy over. Me, a scruffy nobody, against an empire of high-tech freaks? Hell yeah. Humans don't just survive, we thrive, and I'm about to prove it by flipping her perfect little universe upside down. Think we're prey in this sci-fi nightmare? Watch us rewrite the rules and burn it all down. Subscribe now, you legends. We're unleashing epic sci-fi where humans rule the cosmos. HFY at its wildest. Don't miss the insanity. Hit that button and join the rebellion. I reckon I was the only breathing soul left on Clithera, unless you count the skittering ice rats, or whatever those blind, clawing things were that burrowed under the frost. Never saw them up close, mind you, just the little trails they scratched out in the snow, like some secret code I didn't have the patience to crack. Clithera wasn't exactly a vacation spot. It was more like the galaxy's forgotten junk drawer, a place you ended up when every other road kicked you square in the teeth and left you limping. On the surface, it looked dead as a doornail. Endless plains of ice cracked and shimmering under a pale, washed-out sky, the kind of cold that sank into your bones and stayed there like an unwanted guest. Breathable air, sure, if you didn't mind the sting of frost in your lungs or the faint metallic tang that clung to every inhale. The temperature danced between bitter and brutal, and the landscape was a graveyard of jagged ice spires and rusted machinery half buried in snowdrifts. Leftovers from a boomtown that went bust ages ago. Back in its heyday, Clithera had been a gold mine. Well, not gold, but close enough. Some big-shot corporation, NextCorp, had set up shop here, drilling into the planet's crust for rare energy crystals that powered half the sector's warp drives. The rigs were massive, hulking beasts of steel and alloy, chewing through ice and rock like it was nothing. For a while, it was a frenzy, miners, engineers, and profiteers swarming the place, turning it into a buzzing hive of greed. But the crystals ran dry faster than anyone expected, or maybe the storms got too nasty, or the machines just couldn't take the cold anymore. Whatever the reason, NextCorp packed up and left, abandoning their toys to rust and freeze. Now, those old rigs loomed out there in the white wastes, skeletal and silent, like the bones of some giant beast picked clean by time. The official charts called Clithera decommissioned, low priority. Around the spacer bars, they just called it that frozen hellhole nobody wants. So why was I here? Simple. I was running. Name's Cale Voren, ex-engineer, ex-employee of NextCorp, and currently ex-everything else too. A few years back, I'd been one of their golden boys, tinkering with reactors and keeping the crystal drills humming. Good gig, decent pay, until I found out they were cutting corners, dangerous ones. The higher-ups were pushing a new extraction method, unstable as all get out, and I warned them it'd blow. They didn't listen. I was right, though. One night, the main reactor went up in a fireball that lit the sky for miles, took out half the outpost and a couple dozen workers with it. Problem was, I'd been the one to rig the override when they forced my hand. Didn't matter that I'd begged them to stop. The logs pinned it on me. NextCorp branded me as saboteur, slapped a bounty on my head, and sent their bloodhounds after me. I bolted, hopping freighters and backwater ports until I landed here, on Clithera, figuring no one bothered chasing me to a place this miserable. My setup wasn't much to brag about, but it kept me alive. I'd claimed an old maintenance outpost, a squat little bunker half sunk into the ice, patched together with scavenge panels and duct tape. Inside, I had a jury-rig heater cobbled from spare parts, a flickering glow that barely fought off the chill. Water came from melting snow, and a recycler I'd tweaked to work tasted like rust, but it was wet. Food was trickier. I'd set up a little grow box in the corner, A tangle of tubes and UV lights where I nursed some grayish in mushrooms I'd found spores for in an abandoned lab crate. Not exactly gourmet, but they filled the belly. Every now and then, I'd bundle up in my patched Enviro suit, grab a spear I'd made from a broken drill bit, and go hunting for those ice rats. Ugly little bastards, all claws and teeth, but roasted over the heater, they weren't half bad. Survival's funny like that. You'll eat anything if it means not starving. Days on Clithera had a rhythm, if you could call it that. Wake up to the dim blue glow filtering through the ice-crusted window, the kind of light that made everything look like a faded hollow pick. Check the grow box, tinker with the heater when it sputtered, maybe poke around outside for scrap to fix whatever broke next. The storms were the real wild card. Howling blizzards that'd roll in without warning, whipping the snow into a whiteout so thick you couldn't see your own hand. I'd hunker down then, listening to the wind scream like it was mad at the world, and play old audio logs on my beat-up data slate. They were recordings from my sister, Lila, back on a colony world I hadn't seen in years. "Kale, you idiot, don't work yourself to death out there," she'd say, her voice crackling through static. She'd been the only family I had left, until a plague took her and the rest of the settlement. Those logs were all I had now, a lifeline to keep me from going stir-crazy. Sometimes I'd talk back to them, muttering replies into the empty air. Yeah, I know, sounds nuts, but you try living alone on a frozen rock and see how long your sanity holds up. Truth be told, I'd gotten used to it. The quiet, the cold, the way Clithera seemed to swallow every sound except the crunch of my boots or the hum of my gear. It wasn't paradise, but it was mine. No bosses, no bounty hunters, just me and the ice. The storm spiced things up, sure, but I'd learned to ride them out. And every so often, I'd stumble on something weird out there, like the time I found a set of tracks in the snow, too big to be ice rats, too precise to be random. They stretched out toward the horizon, then just stopped like whatever made them vanished into thin air. Creepy as hell, but the wind erased them by morning, so I chalked it up to fatigue. Or the time my scanner picked up a faint signal from under the ice, a pulsing beep that didn't match any tech I knew. I figured it was some old NextCorp junk glitching out after decades of neglect, and left it alone. Mysteries were fine, long as they didn't try to kill me. I thought I had this solitude gig figured out. Years on Clithera had sanded down the edges of my guilt, left me numb but functional. I wasn't looking for company. Hell, I'd come here to avoid it. The idea of seeing another face, hearing another voice, felt as alien as the planet itself. I made my peace with never leaving, with fading into the ice like those rigs out there. But the universe, it's got a funny way of kicking you when you're down, or maybe when you're just too damn comfortable. One night, right as the sky turned that bruised purple it does before a storm, everything changed. It started with the signal again, that same pulsing beep, louder this time, cutting through the static on my scanner like a knife. I was fiddling with the heater, swearing under my breath as it coughed smoke when the noise hit. Not now. I grumbled, figuring I'd ignore it like always. But then the ground shook, just a little, enough to rattle the grow box and spill my cup of recycled water. I froze, ear straining. Clithera didn't do quakes. The ice was too solid for that. I stumbled to the window, wiping frost off the glass, and that's when I saw it. A streak of red light slicing through the clouds, bright as a flare, trailing smoke and sparks. A ship, no doubt about it, and it was coming down fast. Too fast. I watched it wobble, dip, then plummet out of sight somewhere past the eastern ridge, maybe a few miles off. The crash was silent from here, swallowed by the wind, but my gut told me it wasn't a soft landing. For a second, I just stood there, breath fogging the window, heart thumping louder than it had in years. A ship on Clithera? Could be NextCorp, finally sniffing me out. Could be pirates, scavengers, or some poor bastard who miscalculated their jump. Part of me wanted to bolt the door, hunker down, pretend I hadn't seen a damn thing. But another part, the part that hadn't died out here yet, itched to know. If someone was alive out there, they'd need help. If they were trouble, well, I'd rather see it coming than wait for it to knock. I grabbed my Enviro suit, patched and stiff from the cold, and hauled my sorry self out into the snow. The storm was brewing, dark clouds churning overhead, but I fired up my cobbled-together snow skimmer and gunned it toward the crash site, kicking up powder in my wake. Whatever was waiting out there, it was the first sign of life I'd seen in years, and I wasn't sure if that scared me or thrilled me more. The snow skimmer whined under me as I pushed it hard across the ice, the engine rattling like it was about to cough its last breath and call it a day. Clithera's storms were no joke, and this one was brewing up a real monster. Dark clouds piling up like bruises on the sky, the wind already clawing at my enviro suit with icy fingers. I'd seen that red streak drop out of the heavens, a ship for sure, and it hadn't looked like it was landing so much as crashing. My gut churned with a mix of dread and dumb curiosity. Out here, anything new was either a lifeline or a death sentence, and I wasn't betting on the former. Still, I gunned the skimmer toward the eastern ridge, the beam of my jury-rigged headlamp cutting through the swirling snow. Whatever was out there, I'd find it, or it'd find me. The crash site wasn't hard to spot once I crested the ridge. About 3 miles from my outpost, a jagged scar of churned ice and steaming wreckage stretched across the plain, glowing faintly against the whiteout. The ship, or what was left of it, hadn't exploded, which was a miracle, but it had hit hard. It was sleek, teardrop-shaped, maybe 50 feet long, its hull shimmering with a weird, organic sheen like it was made of metal that had grown instead of being forged. Smoke poured from its guts, a sickly green plume that twisted up into the storm like it was alive. One wing, or fin, or whatever you'd call it, was crumpled against a slab of ice, and the nose was wedged into the ground, still hissing and popping from the impact. I killed the skimmer's engine a good 100 yards out, letting it coast to a stop. No sense announcing myself if this was trouble. I grabbed my spear, nothing fancy, just a sharpened drill bit on a pole, and crept closer, boots crunching in the snow, heart thumping loud enough to wake the dead. Up close, the ship was even stranger. The hull wasn't just shiny. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, and the surface was etched with curling patterns that looked almost alive. Veins or circuits, I couldn't tell. Definitely not NextCorp tech, and not any pirate rig I'd ever seen. Too pretty, too alien. I circled it slow, keeping low, scanning for signs of life. The storm was picking up, snow pelting my visor, and I was about to write it off as a lost cause when a hatch on the side groaned open, sliding back with a hiss. I froze, spear up, breath caught in my throat. Someone stumbled out, and I damn near dropped the weapon right then and there. She was tall, lean, and nothing like human. Her skin was red, not pinkish red like a sunburn, but a deep, fiery crimson that glowed against the snow like embers trapped under glass. Her hair was silver, long and wild, whipping in the wind like liquid metal. And her eyes, holy hell, her eyes were a sharp, glowing purple that cut through the haze like twin beacons. She wore some kind of outfit that looked half armor, half dress, tight as a second skin, shimmering with golden threads and swirling designs, though it was torn at the shoulder and hip, showing flashes of that red skin underneath. And her ears, pointed, curved back like a bird's wings, with faint glowing veins running through them, twitched as she steadied herself against the ship. She was gorgeous, no denying it, in a way that hit you like a punch to the chest, but she also looked like she could snap me in half without breaking a sweat. Alien, through and through. She spotted me right off, those purple eyes locking on like a predator sizing up prey. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice low and smooth, with a lilting accent that rolled over the words like music. It wasn't loud, but it carried over the wind, sharp and commanding. "Clithera has no life. Speak." I blinked, brain scrambling to catch up. Kale," I managed, lowering the spear a hair, but not dropping it. She straightened, brushing snow off her torn sleeve like it was nothing, though I caught a wince as she moved. "I am intact," she said, clipped and formal. The ship less so. My navigation failed in the storm. Her gaze flicked over me, suit, spear, skimmer, like she was cataloging every detail, then back to my face. "You're human. Here. How?" "Long story," I said, shrugging. "Mostly involves bad decisions and worse luck. Look, storm's getting nasty. My place is a few miles back. Warm, dry. Got a heater that mostly works. You're welcome to it. Unless you'd rather freeze out here with your fancy wreck. Her eyes narrowed, suspicious, but the wind howled louder, and a shiver ran through her, subtle, but there. That red skin didn't look built for this cold. Very well, she said finally, stepping away from the ship. Lead on, Cale Voren. But know this, I am not helpless. She tapped something on her wrist, a sleek band that pulsed once, and the hatch snapped shut behind her. Message received. Don't try anything stupid. We didn't talk much on the way back. The skimmer wasn't built for two, so she perched behind me, close enough I could feel her presence like a live wire, her hands gripping the frame instead of me. Probably for the best. The storm was full on now, snow blinding, wind screaming, and I pushed the machine to its limit, weaving between ice spires until the outpost loomed up ahead. It wasn't much, a squat metal box half buried in a drift, patched and ugly, but it was home. I parked under the overhang, killed the engine, and hauled the door open, waving her in. After you. What's your name anyway? She stepped inside, ducking under the low frame, those silver locks brushing the ceiling. Zyra Thalaris, she said, turning to face me as I followed and bolted the door. And I am grateful for now. The way she said it, like she wasn't used to owing anyone, made me smirk. Grateful's a start, I said, peeling off my helmet and shaking snow from my hair. Let's see if I can keep it that way. Inside, the outpost was its usual mess, cluttered workbench, flickering heater, grow box humming in the corner. Zyra stood out like a flare in a blackout, her crimson skin and shimmering outfit clashing with the rust and grime. She scanned the place, those pointed ears twitching faintly, and I caught her nose wrinkle at the smell. Mushrooms and stale air, probably not her usual scene. I tossed my spear in a corner and rummaged for a spare cup, filling it with recycled water. Best I got, I said, offering it. No fancy wine cellar out here. She took it, sipping slow, her purple eyes never leaving me. You live alone, she said. Not a question, just a fact. Why? Like I said, long story. I leaned against the bench, folding my arms. Short version. I pissed off some powerful folks, and Clither is the only place they won't look. You? What's up, whatever you are, doing crashing on my doorstep? She set the cup down, her movements graceful despite the torn getup. I am Sarathian, she said, like that explained everything. When I just stared, she sighed, a sound that somehow managed to be regal. My people rule a dominion beyond your sector, advanced, prosperous. I am its queen, or was, until circumstance forced me to flee. I blinked. Queen, right? So what? You're on the run from a coup or something. Not a coup. She hesitated, fingers brushing the golden threads on her sleeve. A betrothal. My council arranged a union with a warlord, Dren Varkis. A brute who conquers worlds and calls it peace. I refused. They insisted. So I took my ship and left, intending to disappear. She glanced at the window, where the storm raged. Clithera was meant to be empty. A glitch brought me here. Bad luck for both of us, then, I said, half joking. So what's the plan? Fix your ship and vanish again. Her eyes locked on mine, sharp and unreadable. Not quite. She stepped closer, close enough I could smell something on her, like spice and molten steel, alien and intoxicating. I have a proposition, Cale Voren, one that could benefit us both. I raised a brow, suddenly aware of how small the outpost felt with her in it. Yeah? I am listening. She straightened, all queenly again despite the rips in her fancy threads. Sarathian law binds me to this betrothal unless I form a prior union, a ritual called the linking of souls. It's a legal bond recognized across our dominion, and it would nullify Dren's claim. I need a partner for it, someone unaffiliated, outside our politics. Her gaze bored into me. Someone like you. I laughed, short and sharp, before I could stop myself. You're kidding. You want me to what, marry you? For a loophole? Not kidding, she said, voice steady as steel. And not marriage as you humans define it. A temporary bond, ceremonial, easily dissolved once my position is secure. In return, I can erase your past. Your pursuers. Next corp, yes? I have a means to clear their bounty, grant you new identity, credits, a life beyond this frozen wasteland. You be free. I stopped laughing. Free. The word hit like a punch, stirring up all the crap I'd buried. Guilt over the reactor, the years hiding, the fear of a bounty hunter's blaster in my back. That's a hell of an offer, I said slow, scratching the stubble on my jaw. What's the catch? There is risk, she admitted, crossing her arms, which only made that torn outfit shift in ways I tried not to notice. The ritual requires connection. A device links us, briefly, to prove intent. If it's challenged later, we need to convince my people it's real. And if Dren finds me before we finalize it, he'll kill us both. Great, I muttered. So I trade one death sentence for another. Or you trade exile for freedom, she countered, stepping even closer, her ears twitching again. I crashed here by chance, Kale, but you're exactly what I need, a human with no ties, no stake in my world. Help me, and I'll help you. Refuse, and I'll leave once my ship's repaired. Your choice. I stared at her, that crimson skin glowing faintly in the heater's light, those purple eyes daring me to say no. My brain screamed trap. Years on Clithera had made me paranoid, but my gut, the part that had kept me alive, saw something else. Desperation, yeah, but also a flicker of hope mirrored in her like it was in me. I rubbed my face, exhaling hard. All right, Zyra Thalaris, queen of wherever. I'm in, but if this blows up, I'm blaming you. She smiled, small and sharp, like she'd won something. Noted. We begin at dawn, once the storm breaks. Rest now, you'll need it. I nodded, turning to dig out a spare blanket, but my mind was racing. A queen, a ritual, a ticket out. Clithera had just gotten a lot less quiet, and I wasn't sure if I just saved myself or signed up for something way over my head. Either way, sleep wasn't coming easy tonight, not with her standing there, all fire and silver, shaking up my frozen little world. The storm howled outside like a beast with a grudge, rattling the outpost walls and making the whole place feel like it might collapse under the weight of Clithera's fury. Inside, though, it was just me and Zyra Thalaris, queen of some fancy alien empire, crash-landed royalty, and now my ticket out of this frozen hellhole. Dawn was still a few hours off, the sky a bruised purple through the frosted window, but sleep wasn't an option. Not with her pacing my cramped little bunker, all crimson skin and silver hair, those pointed ears twitching like they were picking up signals I couldn't hear. She'd ditched the torn sleeve of her shimmering outfit, leaving one shoulder bare, and every time she moved, the golden threads caught the heater's glow, making her look like some kind of living flame. Me? I was a sweaty mess in my patched undershirt, trying to pretend I wasn't staring. So, I said, clearing my throat as I leaned against the workbench, arms crossed like that'd make me look less rattled. This linking of souls thing, how's it work? I'm not big on surprises, especially the kind that might fry me. Zyra stopped pacing, turning those glowing purple eyes on me, sharp and steady. It's simple, she said, her voice that same low, lilting hum that somehow cut through the wind's roar. We use a device, the Concord crystal. It binds us, temporarily, through intent and proximity. A legal formality, nothing more. She reached into a small satchel she'd salvaged from her ship, pulling out a fist-sized orb that pulsed with a faint violet light, its surface swirling like liquid trapped in glass. This reads us, confirms the bond, and logs it for Serathian law. Once done, my betrothal to Dren is void. Simple, huh? I raised a brow, eyeing the crystal like it might bite. And the catch? You said there's risk. She stepped closer, holding the orb between us, her red skin glowing warmer in the dim light. The risk is minimal if we stay focused. The crystal links our emotions, just enough to prove sincerity. If we waver, let distractions take hold, it could deepen the bond beyond what we intend. Permanent, perhaps. But that won't happen. We're both practical, yes. I snorted, scratching the back of my neck. Practical's my middle name. Still, emotions and deepened sound like trouble. What kind of distractions are we talking? Her lips twitched, almost a smirk, and those alien ears tilted slightly. The kind you humans seem prone to, she said, dry as the ice outside. Desire, mostly. The crystal amplifies it if you let it. Don't. Got it, I said, though my throat felt tight. No funny business. Just business. When do we start? Now, she said, setting the crystal on the workbench with a soft clink. The storm delays my ship's repairs, but the ritual can't wait. Dren's hunters could track me any moment. We need this done before they find us. I nodded, shoving down the nerves crawling on my spine. All right, boss lady, tell me what to do. She didn't waste time. Strip your outer layers, she said, matter of fact, already tugging at the clasps on her own outfit. The crystal needs contact, skin, breath, heat. It's how it reads us. I froze mid-nod, brain short-circuiting. Say what now? She glanced at me, unimpressed. Don't be childish, Kale Voren. It's not seduction, it's science. The closer we are, the clearer the signal. Remove your shirt, stand here. She pointed to a spot in front of her, then peeled off the top half of her armored dress, letting it fall to her waist. Underneath was a thin, translucent layer that hugged her like liquid gold, showing every curve of that crimson body, shoulders, ribs, the dip of her spine. Her ears flared slightly, the glowing veins in them pulsing faster, and I swear the room got 10 degrees hotter. Science, I muttered, fumbling with my undershirt like an idiot. Right, sure. I yanked it over my head, tossing it aside, and stepped where she'd pointed, bare-chested and feeling like a fool. The cold bit my skin, but her presence, close now, maybe a foot away, burned hotter than the heater ever could. This close enough? Closer, she said, stepping in until our boots nearly touched. She was taller than me by an inch, those purple eyes level with mine, and that scent hit me again, spice and molten steel, dizzying. Hands here. She grabbed my wrists, guiding them to her waist, her skin cool but alive under my palms, like touching a live wire wrapped in silk. Then she pressed her own hands to my chest, fingers splaying over my ribs, and I damn near forgot how to breathe. I managed, voice cracking like a teenager's. This normal for you Sarathians? Focus, she snapped, though her ears twitched again, and I caught a flicker in those eyes. Nerves, maybe, or something else. The crystal binds us now. Speak after me. I, Kale Voren, link my essence to yours in truth and will. Say it. I swallowed, her hands searing into me, her waist firm under my grip. I, Kale Voren, link my essence to yours in truth and will. I echoed, the words feeling heavy, alien, like they carried more weight than I understood. The crystal flared brighter, humming low, and a weird tingle shot up my arms like static but deeper. Zyra's turn. I, Zyra Thalaris, link my essence to yours in truth and will, she said, her voice steady but softer, her breath brushing my face. The crystal pulsed again, and that tingle turned into a flood, warmth spreading from her hands into my chest, coiling down my spine, making my knees want to buckle. I gripped her tighter, instinctive, and her eyes widened a fraction, those glowing ears quivering. Steady, she whispered, but her voice was rough now, and I felt her fingers flex against me, nails grazing my skin just enough to spark something raw. The crystal's light shifted, swirling faster, and I swear I heard a faint echo, like our heartbeats syncing up, loud in the silence. Working, I rasped, trying to focus on anything but the heat of her, the way her red skin seemed to pulse under my hands. Yes, she said, but she didn't pull away, and neither did I. The air between us crackled, thick with something I couldn't name, tension sure, but sharper, like a blade hovering over us both. Don't let go, she added, quieter, and I wasn't sure if she meant my hands or something else. The crystal flared one last time, a burst of violet that bathed us in light, then dimmed to a steady glow. Done, I figured, but we didn't move. Her hand stayed on me, mine on her, and for a stupid, reckless second, I wondered what had happened if I slid my grip higher, if she'd stop me or lean in. Her ears were trembling now, the glow in them brighter, and her lips parted like she might say something or do something, but then she stepped back, breaking the circuit, leaving my skin buzzing and cold where she'd been. It's complete, she said, turning to the crystal, her voice clipped again, all business. The bond is logged. We're linked legally. For now. For now. I echoed, grabbing my shirt and yanking it back on, mostly to hide how rattled I was. That was intense. It's meant to be, she said, adjusting her outfit with quick, precise moves, though I caught her glancing at me, quick and guarded. The crystal mirrors intent. It worked because we both want this, freedom, survival. Nothing more. Yeah, I said, not entirely convinced. Nothing more. But as she stowed the crystal and started pacing again, plotting our next move, I couldn't shake it. The feel of her under my hands, the way her eyes had flickered, the pull that had hit me like a freight train. Practical, she'd said. Keep it business. Sure, except my blood was still humming, and I had a bad feeling this little ritual had stirred up more than just a legal loophole. Clithra was cold as ever outside, but in here, with her, it was getting damn near unbearable, and not in a bad way. Trouble was, I wasn't sure if that was a win or a disaster waiting to happen. The storm didn't let up, not even a little, which was just my luck. Clithra's blizzards had a way of digging in their heels, and this one was no exception. Snow slamming the outpost walls like it had a personal vendetta, wind screaming loud enough to drown out the heater's pitiful hum. Zyra and I were stuck inside for hours after that damn ritual. The Concord crystal sitting smug on my workbench, its faint glow a reminder of what had just gone down. I pulled my shirt back on, but my skin still buzzed where her hands had been, and every time she moved, pacing, fiddling with her wristband, brushing that silver hair back, I caught myself staring. Those pointed ears of hers kept twitching, glowing veins pulsing like they were mocking me. Practical, she'd said. Yeah, right? Nothing about this felt practical anymore. Storm's too thick to check the ship, I said, mostly to fill the silence, leaning back against the grow box and pretending I wasn't still rattled. We're grounded till it breaks. You sure your Warlord X isn't going to drop him before then? Zyra glanced at the window, her purple eyes narrowing at the wideout beyond. Dren's hunters are relentless, but not reckless, she said, her voice steady despite the torn-up state of her fancy outfit. They'll wait for clear skies. We have time, barely. She tapped her wristband, frowning at whatever it showed. The ship's hull is intact, but the engines took damage. I'll need your help to fix it. Me? I snorted, crossing my arms. Lady, I'm a grease monkey, not a miracle worker. That thing's alien tech, way above my pay grade. You're resourceful, she said, turning to me with that queenly tilt of her head, ears flaring slightly. You've survived here, alone with scraps. My ship's systems are advanced, yes, but the principles are the same. Power, wiring, mechanics. I'll guide you. I scratched my jaw, stubble rasping under my fingers. Fair enough. I've patched worse than the heap out there. But if it blows up in our faces, don't say I didn't warn you. She smirked, first real one I'd seen, and it hit me harder than it should have, all sharp and knowing. Noted, Kale Voren. We move at first light. Light came slow, but when the storm finally eased up, dropping to a low growl instead of a full-on tantrum, we suited up and headed out. My Enviro suit was stiff and patched, but it'd hold. Zyra didn't have one. Said her Cerathian gear was enough, though that torn dress thing didn't look like it'd stop a breeze, let alone frostbite. She didn't shiver, though, just strode out into the snow like she owned it, crimson skin glowing against the white, silver hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. I hauled a crate of tools, wrenches, welders, whatever I could scrounge, and followed, the skimmer loaded up and whining under the extra weight. The crash site was a mess, worse than I'd thought. The ship's sleek hull was scratched to hell, one engine pod blackened and spitting sparks, but hadn't cracked open. Tough little bastard. Zyra knelt by the damage, her fingers tracing those weird, pulsing patterns on the metal, and I caught myself watching her again. The way she moved, all grace and purpose, even in this frozen dump. Here, she said, pointing to the pod. The core's misaligned. We realign it, rewire the conduits, and it'll fly. Easy for you to say, I muttered, dropping the crate and digging out a torch. Let's crack it open and see what we're dealing with. We worked fast, or tried to. The cold made everything harder, numbing my fingers even through gloves, and the ship's guts were a tangle of glowing cables and organic-looking circuits I didn't understand. Zyra talked me through it, her voice calm but clipped, pointing out what to cut, what to weld. She was good, damn good, knew her tech inside out, and I started to see why she'd lasted as a queen. I improvised jury-rigging fixes with scraps from my stash, and somehow, it clicked. Hours bled by, snow piling up around us, but we got the core back in place, the engine humming faintly when we tested it. Progress, at least. Then Clithera decided to remind us who was boss. We were mid-weld, me crouched under the pod, Zyra holding a panel steady, when the ground shook, a low rumble that vibrated up my spine. What the? I started, but then the ice cracked, loud and sharp, and something burst up from below, metal tendrils, rusted but fast, whipping out like they'd been waiting for us. Old Next Corp junk? Maybe, or something older, buried and pissed off. One lashed at me, razor-edged, and I dove, slamming into Zyra and knocking us both into a snowbank. We hit hard, tangled up, my chest pressed to hers, her arms pinned under me. Those tendrils thrashed overhead, slicing the air, and I grabbed her wrist, dragging us behind the ship for cover. "You okay?" I panted, snow caking my visor, my free hand still on her like I couldn't let go. "Intact," she gasped, her voice rough, purple eyes wide and locked on mine. Her silver hair was splayed across the snow, her red skin stark against it, and that torn outfit had ridden up, leaving her midriff bare, smooth, warm, way too close. I was half on top of her, one knee between hers, and the heat of her cut through the cold like a blade. Her ears twitched fast, glowing brighter, and her breath hitched, fogging between us. "Good," I said, voice hoarse, trying to focus on the damn tendrils still flailing 10 feet away. "What the hell are those?" "Relics," she said, shifting under me, but not pushing me off. "Ancient defenses triggered by our work. They'll stop if we stay still." Her hand slid up my arms, gripping tight, and I felt her pulse racing under my palms, fast, alive, too damn real. "Stay still," I echoed, but staying still was the last thing my brain wanted. She was right there, crimson and silver and burning under me, her lips parted, those ears quivering like they were begging me to do something stupid. The tendril slowed, coiling back into the ice, but I didn't move, couldn't, not with her looking at me like that. Half warning, half dare. "Kale," she said, low and sharp, her nails digging into my suit. Don't what?" I shot back, quieter than I meant, my face inches from hers. The air crackled again like back in the ritual, and I swear I felt that buzz from the crystal even now, pulling us in. She didn't answer, just held my gaze, her chest rising fast against mine, and for a split second, I thought she might close the gap, thought I might too. But then the last tendril sank out of sight, the ground stilled, and she shoved me off, rolling to her feet with a grace I didn't have. "We finished the ship," she said, brushing snow off her bare shoulder, voice steady again but strained. "Now." "Yeah," I muttered, hauling myself up, head spinning. "Ship." "Right." I grabbed the torch, hands shaky, and we got back to it, welding, wiring, pretending that moment hadn't happened. But it had, and it hung there between us, heavy as the storm clouds rolling back in. The engine fired up, a low purr, and Zyra nodded, satisfied, but her eyes flicked to me too often and mine to her. Practical my ass. This was getting messy, and we weren't even off Clithera yet. Then her wristband beeped, shrill and urgent, cutting through the silence. She tapped it, and her face went hard. "Dren's hunters," she said, voice flat with dread. "They've locked my signal. They're coming." "Great," I said, grabbing my tools and spear. "Guess we're on the clock now." She didn't reply, just started prepping the ship, but the tension, hers, mine, ours, was thicker than ever. We dodged one disaster, but another was barreling down, and whatever this thing between us was, it wasn't slowing down either. Clithera might have been cold, but it was heating up fast, and I had a bad feeling we were in deeper than either of us wanted to admit. The ship didn't so much fly as limp its way off Clithera, engines groaning like they were as tired of that frozen rock as I was. Zyra had patched it up enough to break Opmo, and I'd thrown in my own hack job fixes. Wires twisted together with spit and prayers mostly, but it held. Barely. The takeoff was a teeth-rattling mess, the hull shuddering as we punched through the storm clouds, ice pelting us like a farewell middle finger from the planet I'd called home for way too long. I strapped into a co-pilot seat that felt more like a throne, all cushy curves and glowing panels, while Zyra stood at the controls, her crimson hands dancing over holographic displays I couldn't even pretend to understand. Her silver hair was a wild tangle from the wind, those pointed ears twitching like they were still picking up Clithera's static, and that torn outfit of hers, still half armor, half dress, clung to her in ways I tried not to notice. Tried being the key word. Sarathian Prime, she said, not looking at me, her voice clipped and focused. We'll land at my estate. Private dock. Less chance of complications. The way she said it, like she was bracing for a fight, didn't exactly fill me with warm fuzzies. Complications, I echoed, slumping back in the seat, my patched-up shirt feeling like rags next to her tech. Like your warlord fiancé showing up with a blaster and a grudge? Ex-fiancé, she corrected, sharp enough to cut glass, and shot me a look, those purple eyes glowing like warning lights. Dren won't know we're here yet. Not if we're quick. Yeah, quick's my specialty, I muttered, rubbing my face. Right up there with staying out of trouble. She didn't reply, just punched in coordinates, and the ship lurched into a warp jump that hit my stomach like a sucker punch. Stars smeared into streaks outside the viewport, and I gripped the armrests, trying not to puke on her fancy floor. When we dropped out, Sarathian Prime filled the screen, a swirling ball of teal oceans and shimmering gas ribbons, cities floating on the water like glass islands, all lit up with neon and motion. Orbital platforms ringed it, bristling with spiky defenses, and I whistled low. Guess this is what a queen's crib looks like. Beats my bunker by a mile. It's home, Zyra said, softer than I expected, then stiffened like she'd caught herself. Strapping tighter. Descent's tricky. Tricky was an understatement. The ship wobbled like a drunk spacer as we dove through the atmosphere, engines whining, and I swear I felt every weld I'd made straining to hold. Zyra wrestled the controls, her ears flaring, and we skimmed over a glowing ocean before touching down. More like skidding, onto a landing pad the size of small town. It was all polished stone and sleek curves, surrounded by spires that looked like they'd grown out of the ground, and weird, pulsing plants that waved in the breeze. The air smelled wet and alive when the hatch opened, a far cry from Clithera's metallic sting, and I stumbled out after Zyra, legs shaky from the ride. A squad of Sarathians was already there, tall, red-skinned like her, but paler, dressed in flowing robes that shimmered like oil slicks. They carried staff-like weapons that hummed faintly, and their ears, pointed but shorter than Zyra's, twitched as they bowed low. Lady Thalaris, one said, voice smooth and formal, though his purple eyes flicked to me with a mix of confusion and disdain. We weren't informed of your return. And this? Zyra stepped forward, chin high, every inch the queen despite the rips in her gear. This is Kael Vorin, she said, pausing just long enough to let it sink in. My bonded. We've undergone the linking of souls. He's with me. The guards blinked, actually blinked all at once like a synchronized glitch, and I fought the urge to smirk. Hey, nice to meet you too, I said, waving a hand, my voice rough against their polished tones. Don't mind the human stink. I've been camping out on a glacier. They didn't laugh, didn't even twitch. The lead one stammered. Bonded? But the council, Lord Varkes, is no longer relevant. Zyra cut in, sharp as a blade. Prepare quarters for us. I need the legal chamber ready, and summon the council. Now. She turned to me, lowering her voice. Stay close, Kael. They're loyal, but they talk. Got it, I said, falling in behind her as the guards scurried off, casting sideways looks at me like I was a stray dog she dragged in. The estate was insane. Halls of smooth, glowing marble, walls rippling with 3D illusions of alien landscapes, floating sculptures that hummed when you passed. Servants in sleek suits darted around, bowing to Zyra, and I tried not to gape like some backwater hick. My boots clomped loud on the floor, a stark contrast to her silent stride, and I couldn't shake the feeling I was a smudge on this perfect picture. She led me to a suite bigger than my whole outpost, all plush cushions and a bed that looked like it could swallow me whole. A window stretched floor to ceiling, showing the ocean glittering under 3 moons, and I whistled again. You weren't kidding about the queen thing. This place makes Clithera look like a latrine. It's temporary, she said, shedding the last of her torn outer layer, leaving that thin, golden undersuit that clung to her crimson skin like paint. Her ears twitched as she moved to a console, typing fast. We rest, then face the council. They'll challenge us. Drin's allies are strong. Challenge us how? I asked, flopping onto a chair that adjusted under me like it was alive. That crystal thing's logged, right? We're golden. She hesitated, silver hair spilling over her shoulder as she turned. Logged, yes, but they can demand proof, the circle of truth. It's deeper than the crystal, reads more than intent. If they doubt us, we'll face it. Deeper, eshot, gut zinking. Like what? My charming personality? Emotion, she said, meeting my eyes, and there was that buzz again like back in the ritual. Connection. If it finds nothing real, we're exposed. And punished. I rubbed my face, groaning. Great. So we fake it till we make it. We don't fake it, she snapped, ears flaring. We stand together. That's enough. But her voice wobbled, just a hair, and I wondered if she believed it. Before I could push, a chime rang out, and a holographic figure popped up, another Cerathian, older, with silver implants glinting in his face. Lady Thalaris, he said, bowing. The council convenes in 2 hours. Lord Varkes is en route. He's displeased. Expected, Zyra said, dismissing him with a wave. The hollow blinked out, and she exhaled, shoulders slumping for the first time since we'd met. Rest, Kale. You'll need it. Yeah, you too, I said, but she was already moving, barking orders in her wristband. I kicked off my boots, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. 2 hours till showtime, and we were walking into a lion's den with nothing but a shaky bond and some quick talking. Perfect. Those 2 hours flew by. Zyra's people swooped in with clothes for me, some sleek, dark tunic that fit like it had been tailored, though the micro-drones buzzing around my head to trim my hair were a bit much. I ended up with a shaved swirl on one side, Cerathian style, and caught Zyra stifling a laugh when she saw it. You look tolerable, she said, smirking, back in a fresh outfit, golden armor dress, pristine and regal, her silver hair swept up like a crown. Tolerable's my specialty. I shot back, grinning despite the nerves chewing my gut. Let's go wow him. The council hall was a dome of glass and light, star maps swirling on the ceiling, and a crowd of Cerathians, red-skinned, purple-eyed, all staring, parted as we walked in. At the far end, on a raised platform, stood a tall figure in rune-stitched robes, silver hair gleaming. Had to be her dad, Lord Thalaris, radiating power like a storm cloud. Next to him, a grizzled hulk of a Cerathian loomed, black skin, mechanical arms, eyes like molten gold. Drin Varkes, no question. He glared at Zyra, then me, and I felt the room tilt. Zyra, Drin snarled, voice like gravel. What's this farce? You bring a human and call it a bond. No farce, she said, stepping forward, me at her side. This is Kael Vorin, my bonded under Cerathian law. The linking is done. Your claim is null. The hall went dead quiet, then erupted. Murmurs, gasps, Drin's fist slamming the platform. Lord Thalaris raised a hand, silencing it, his eyes narrowing on me. You, he said, voice cold as Clithera's ice. Name yourself, human. Kael Vorin, I said, throat dry, forcing a nod. Sir. Honor to be here. He didn't blink. Honor, he repeated like it tasted bad. Zyra, this insults centuries of tradition. Explain. She squared her shoulders, ears steady. I chose freedom over chains. Kael is my bonded, legally recognized. The law stands. Drin laughed, harsh and ugly. Law? This is a trick. I demand the circle of truth. Let's see if this rat's bond holds. My stomach dropped. Zyra's hand brushed mine, quick and firm, and I knew we were in it now. Deep, with no way out but through. The hall went still as death after Dren's demand, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears and makes your skin itch. The circle of truth sounded like some hokey ritual from a bad holodrama, but the way everyone's purple eyes snapped to us, I knew it was no joke. Zyra's hand lingered near mine, not quite touching now, but close enough I felt the heat off her crimson skin. Her ears were steady, glowing veins faint, but I caught the tiniest twitch, like she wasn't as calm as she looked. Me? My gut was doing flips, and I had to clench my jaw to keep from blurting something stupid like, "Can we skip to the part where I don't die?" Lord Thalaris stood there, all silver hair and steely glare, sizing us up like we were bugs under a scope. "The circle of truth," he said finally, voice echoing off the domed ceiling, heavy with something I couldn't place, disapproval, maybe, or just exhaustion. "If this bond is false, it will show. If it's true, so be it. Bring the relic." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and a couple of robed Sarathians hustled off, returning with a chest that looked older than Clithera's ice. They set it down with a thud, popping the lid to reveal a glowing orb, bigger than Zyra's Concord crystal, swirling with green fractals that danced like trapped lightning. The circle of truth, I guessed, and it didn't look friendly. Dren smirked, his mechanical arms flexing with a whir, like he was already picturing me fried to a crisp. "Let's see your little humans stand this, Zyra," he growled. "No hiding now." "Shut it," I muttered under my breath, then louder when Zyra shot me a look. "What?" "He's asking for it." "Focus," she hissed, stepping toward the orb, her golden dress armor catching the light. We faced it together, hands on the relic like before. "Don't falter." "Gotcha," I said, swallowing hard. No faltering. Piece of cake. Except my palms were sweaty, and my heart was hammering like it wanted out of my chest. We moved to the center of the hall, the crowd parting like water, and I felt every stare. Hundreds of purple eyes, judging, waiting. The orb pulsed as we got close, and Zyra reached out first, her crimson hand steady as she pressed it to the surface. "Your turn," she said, voice low just for me. I exhaled, wiped my hands on my tunic, and slapped one onto the orb right over hers. It was warm, buzzing under my skin, and the green light flared, tendrils snaking up around our fingers like vines. The hall held its breath, and I locked eyes with Zyra, those glowing purple depths pulling me in, steadying me, somehow. "Here we go," I muttered, and then the world tilted. It wasn't pain, not exactly, but a rush like someone cracked open my skull and poured her into it. Flashes hit me hard. Zyra's memories, raw and real. A dark chamber, Dren looming over her, his metal hand gripping her arm till it bruised. A council room, voices shouting, chaining her to a fate she hated. Then me, crashing in her life on Clithera, a flicker of relief in the chaos. My own head spilled back, guilt over the reactor explosion. Lila's voice fading in static, the loneliness of that frozen outpost. It all swirled together, messy and loud, and I gripped the orb tighter, feeling her pulse under my hand, fast and alive. The light shifted, gold now, swirling higher, and I heard gasp sharp shocked. Zyra's ears quivered, her eyes widening, and I felt it too. A warmth, not just from the relic, but between us like a thread I hadn't known was there. The orb pulsed once, twice, then settled into a steady glow, golden tendrils wrapping our hands like a promise. I blinked, dazed, and realized I hadn't let go. Didn't want to maybe. Impossible. Dren spat, stomping forward, his gold eyes blazing. "A trick. They've rigged it." "The circle doesn't lie," Lord Thalaris said, slow and heavy, staring at us like he'd never seen us before. "The bond is real, or real enough." He flicked a glance at Dren, then back to Zyra. "Explain this, daughter." Zyra pulled her hand free, stepping up, regal as ever. "I chose Kale," she said, loud and clear, ears steady now. "He's my bonded by law and truth. Dren's claim is done. Let him leave." The crowd erupted, shouts, arguments, but Dren wasn't having it. He lunged, faster than something that big should move, and I barely had time to duck before his metal fist swung on my head. "You die, rat," he roared, but Zyra was quicker, slamming her wristband against his arm, a pulse of light knocking him back. Guards swarmed in, staff weapons humming, and pinned him before he could try again. "Enough!" Lord Thalaris bellowed, silencing the chaos. He glared at Dren, then us, his face a mask of grudging acceptance. "The circle has spoken. The bond stands. Varkis, you're dismissed. Zyra, we'll speak later." Dren snarled, shaking off the guards, and stormed out, his glare promising trouble down the line. The crowd parted, muttering, and I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. "That went well," I said, voice shaky, turned to Zyra. "Right." She didn't smile, just grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a side exit. "Move," she said, low and urgent. "Father's not done, and Dren won't quit. We're not safe yet." We ducked into a hallway, her grip tight, and I stumbled after her, head still spinning from the circle. "Wait, real? That glow, what the hell was that?" "Later," she snapped, but her ears were glowing again, and her hand lingered on me a beat too long before letting go. "We won this round. That's what matters." "Yeah, sure," I said, rubbing my chest where that warmth still sat, heavy and weird. "Winning. Totally planned that." She shot me a look, half annoyed, half something softer, and kept moving. The estate buzzed around us, servants whispering, guards eyeing me like I'd grown a second head, but we made it back to the suite without more drama. Zyra locked the door, leaning against it, her silver hair falling loose. "Rest," she said, quieter now. "Tomorrow's worse." "Worse than that." I flopped onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. "You're a real optimist, huh?" She didn't answer, just stood there, crimson and gold in the moonlight, and I couldn't shake it. The circle's glow, her memories in my head, the way she'd looked at me when it flared. Real enough, her dad had said. Trouble was, I wasn't sure what real meant anymore, or if I was ready for it. All I knew was we'd dodged a bullet, but the war wasn't over, and whatever this thing between us was, it had just gotten a lot harder to ignore. The suite felt too big after the council hall chaos, like I'd shrunk or the walls had stretched, leaving me rattling around in all that fancy space. I sprawled on the bed, boots off, staring at the ceiling where tiny lights pulsed like stars, my head still buzzing from a circle of truth. That golden glow, Zyra's memories crashing into mine, Dren's metal fist swinging. It was a lot to unpack, and I wasn't exactly the unpacking type. Zyra was over by the window, her crimson silhouette sharp against the teal glow of Cerathian Prime's ocean, silver hair loose and spilling down her back. Those pointed ears of hers weren't twitching anymore, just glowing faintly, and she stood stiller than I'd ever seen her, like she was holding her breath for the next shoe to drop. Me, I was just trying to figure out how I'd gone from a Clithera hermit to some alien queens, whatever I was now. "So," I said, breaking the silence because it was starting to choke me. "We're alive. Bond's legit. Dren's pissed and gone. That a win in your book?" Zyra turned, her purple eyes catching the moonlight, sharp but softer than usual. "A win, yes," she said, crossing her arms under that golden armor dress, which still looked too good for the mess we'd been through. "For now. Father's accepted it, publicly at least. The council's bound by the circle. Dren's out, and my title's secure." "Sweet," I said, sitting up, rubbing my neck where the tension wouldn't quit. "So I get my payout, you get your throne, and we call it a day, right?" Back to the plan. She didn't answer right away, just watched me, and that quiet stretch thin, tugging at something I didn't want to name. "That was the plan," she said finally, stepping closer, her boots silent on the plush floor. "You're free, Kale. Next Corp's bounty. I've already wired the credits to wipe it. New identities processing. You can go anywhere, do anything." I grinned, leaning back on my hands. "Anywhere but Clithera sounds good. Maybe a beach planet. Sand, sun, no ice rats. You're a lifesaver, Zyra Thalaris." But the grin fell off, and my chest twinged like I'd missed a step going downstairs. Leaving. That had been the deal. Get out, get clear, get gone. So why did it sound less appealing than it should have? She tilted her head, ears flickering, and sat on the edge of the bed. Close, but not too close, like she was testing the air between us. "You could stay," she said, voice low, almost careful. "Here, I mean, for a while. Father's insisting I remain on Prime for a month. Politics, appearances. You could help with that." "Help how?" I raised a brow, smirking to cover the way my pulse kicked up. "Stand around, looking pretty? I'm not exactly palace material." "You're more than you think," she said, and there was no sarcasm in it, just a quiet weight that hit me sideways. "The circle didn't glow for nothing, Kale. You stood with me, against Dren, against Father. That matters here. Stay, and we'll figure it out." I scratched my jaw, stubble rasping, my brain scrambling for a comeback. "Figure what out? I'm a grease monkey, not a lord. Your people'd choke on their fancy robes if I stuck around." "Maybe," she said, a small smile tugging her lips, and damn if it didn't light her up, crimson skin glowing warmer. "But I'd rather they choke than me. And I don't mind your company." That hung there, heavy and real, and I felt that buzz again. The one from the ritual, the circle, every time she got too close. "Don't mind" wasn't exactly a love song, but coming from her it was something. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, meeting her eyes. "You saying you'd miss me, Queen Lady?" Her ears twitched, glowing brighter, and she looked away, out the window. "I'm saying you're useful," she muttered, but her voice cracked, and I grinned wider. "Useful? Sure, I'll take it." I flopped back, hands behind my head, staring at the ceiling again. "All right, I'll stick around. A month's not forever. Beats hiding from bounty hunters, anyway. But no promises I won't trash your fancy digs." She laughed, short, bright, the first real one I'd heard, and it hit me harder than it should have, loosening something in my chest. "Noted," she said, standing, smoothing her dress. "Rest, then. Tomorrow, Father wants us. Official statement, more politics. You'll need to play the part." "Acting's not my forte," I said, yawning, "but I'll wing it." "Night, Zyra." "Good night, Kale," she said, heading for a side room. Her own bunk, I guessed, and the door slid shut behind her. I closed my eyes, the bed swallowing me, but sleep didn't come easy. Too much rattling around in my head. Freedom, her, that damn glow. A month. I could do that, then bounce. Easy. Except it wasn't. The next few days were a blur of Cerathian nonsense. Formal dinners where I fumbled weird utensils. Walks through gardens of glowing plants that smelled like spice, Zyra dragging me into meetings where I nodded and tried not to look lost. Her people warmed up, sort of servants stopped glaring, guards gave me curt nods. But Lord Thalaris was another story. He'd corner me in halls, all stern robes and silver hair, asking pointed questions about my intentions. "You're no Cerathian," he'd say, like I hadn't noticed. "This bond, convenience or more?" I'd shrug, mumble something about helping Zyra, and he'd scowl, unconvinced. God didn't like me, but he didn't kick me out either. Progress, maybe. Zyra, though, she was different. Freer, somehow, now that Dren was off her back. She'd laugh more, tease me about my hacked-together manners, drag me onto a balcony one night to show me the city's neon sprawl. "I hated this place," she said, leaning on the railing, her crimson skin shimmering under 3 moons. "Now it's not so bad." "Yeah," I said, close enough her shoulders brushed, feeling that buzz again. "Guess I'm seeing it fresh, too. Beats ice storms." She glanced at me, purple eyes soft, and I almost said something dumb, something real, but then she pulled back, ears twitching. "We should go in," she said quick, like she'd spooked herself. "Early day tomorrow." "Sure," I said, following, but the moment stuck with me, nagging. A week in, she dropped the bomb. We were in the suite, me lounging, her pacing when she stopped cold. "I want to leave," she said, voice firm. "Not stay, travel. Dren's regrouping. Father's spies caught chatter. He's got allies, ships. We can't sit here waiting for him to hit." I sat up, blinking. "Leave?" Thought the plan was to hunker down, play nice. "Plans change," she said, silver hair swinging as she turned. "I've got a ship, small, fast. We go, hit neutral space, deal with your next court mess too. Father can't stop us now. The bond's too public. Deal with next corp?" I rubbed my face, grinning despite the twist in my gut. You're nuts, you know that? I'm in, though. Beats babysitting plants. She nodded, relieved, and we moved fast, packing light, her pulling strings for the ship, me dodging Thalorus's scowls. He caught us at the dock, arms crossed, looking like he'd chewed Durasteel and spit nails. This is reckless, he said, glaring. You'll drag us into war. Then handle it, Zyra shot back, ears steady. I'm done being your pawn. She grabbed my arm, tugging me aboard, and we lifted off, engines purring smooth this time. In transit, sprawled in the ship's cabin, I watched stars streak by, Zyra beside me plotting a course. Neutral space, huh? I said, nudging her. You crash in that dress again, we're screwed. She smirked, elbowing me back. You survived Clithera. You'll manage. Yeah, I said, lacing my fingers with hers, testing it. She didn't pull away, just squeeze back, and that warmth hit me again real solid. Guess we're a team now. Guess so, she said, leaning closer, silver hair brushing my shoulder. Step by step. I grinned, feeling lighter than I had in years. Clithera was a speck behind us. Next corp a problem for tomorrow, and Dren a fight we'd face together. Whatever this was, bond, partnership, more, it was ours, and for once I wasn't running. The stars blurred on, and I figured, hell, maybe I found something worth sticking around for. The hum of the ship's engines was a steady buzz under my feet, a low growl that felt more like home than Clithera ever had. We'd been in transit for a couple days now, stars streaking past the viewport in long, lazy lines, and I was sprawled across a cushy bench in the cabin, one leg dangling, watching Zyra fiddle with the NAV console. Her crimson skin caught the glow of the hollow display, silver hair spilling over her shoulders like liquid metal, and those pointed ears of hers twitched every time the ship pinged a new signal. She was back in a sleek travel suit, golden threads, tight fit, all Cerathian flair, but it was less torn up than that crash-landing getup, which was a shame in a way. I'd gotten used to the rips showing off her edges. I was in some borrowed spacer gear, black, simple, a little snug, but it beat my Clithera rags, and I didn't smell like ice rat grease anymore. Small victories. Neutral space in 12 hours, Zyra said, not looking up, her voice that same smooth lilt that had hooked me back on that frozen rock. We'll hit a trade hub first, sort your next corp mess, then figure out Dren's next move. Sorta how? I asked, propping myself up on an elbow, smirking. You gonna bribe him with queenly charm? 'Cause I'm pretty sure they'd rather shoot me than chat. She glanced over, purple eyes glinting with that dry amusement I was starting to crave. Credits talk louder than charm, she said, tapping the console to pull up a data slate. I've got enough wire to buy off their bounty hunters twice over. You'll be a ghost to them. New name, new slate. Done. Ghost, huh? I grinned, swinging my legs down to sit up proper. Kale Vorin, galactic nobody. I could get used to that. Long as I don't have to dodge blasters every other Tuesday. No promises, she said, smirking back, and damn if that didn't spark something warm in my chest. She turned back to the console, but her ears glowed a little brighter, and I figured she wasn't as cool about this as she played. I leaned back, hands behind my head, staring at the starlines. Hard to believe it. A week ago, I'd been holed up in my bunker, talking to Nushram logs and waiting for the next storm to bury me. Now I was here, on a ship sleek enough to make Next Corp drool, with a Cerathian queen who'd dragged me out of that hole, literally and otherwise. The circle of truth still nagged at me, that golden glow tying us up in ways I hadn't signed up for. Real, her dad had said. Real enough. I wasn't sure what that meant yet, but it wasn't just a paycheck anymore, that much I knew. Zyra's hand in mine back on Prime, her laugh in the gardens, the way she'd shoved me off that snowbank on Clithera. It had stuck deeper than I'd planned. You ever think about it? I said, breaking the quiet, my voice rougher than I meant. Clithera, how we ended up here. She paused, fingers hovering over the controls, then turned to face me, leaning against the console. Every day, she said, softer than usual, her ears tilting back. I was running blind, thought I'd crash and vanish, no trace. Instead, I found you, a human of all things in the middle of nowhere. Flattering, I said, smirking, but my throat tightened. Guess I was the lucky one. Huh? Hiding out, waiting for the axe to drop, then bam, alien royalty lands on my doorstep. Lucky, she echoed, her smile small but real, and she crossed the cabin to sit beside me. Close enough our knees brushed. Maybe we both were. Clithera was a dead end, mine and yours. Now it's this. This, I said, nodding, feeling that buzz again where her leg touched mine. Yeah, not bad for a dead end. We sat there a minute, the ship's hum filling the space, and I caught her scent, spice and steel, same as that first day, but warmer now, familiar. I shifted, lacing my fingers through hers like I'd done back on Prime, testing it again. She didn't pull away, just squeezed back, her crimson hands steady in mine, and that warmth spread, slow and sure. So what's the play? I asked, keeping it light. We ditched Ren, fixed my mess, then what? Galactic road trip? Something like that, she said, leaning her head on my shoulder, silver hair tickling my neck. Step by step. I've got a ship, you've got whatever you've got. Charm and good looks. I cut in, grinning. And we've got time, she finished, ignoring me, but smiling wider. Drin won't quit, but he's not here now. Next Scorp's a ghost soon. We figure it out as we go. Works for me, I said, resting my cheek against her hair, feeling the hum of her ears under my jaw. Never was big on plans anyway. She laughed, quiet, bright, and it hit me like it always did, loosening the last knots I'd carried from Clithera. We stayed like that, shoulder to shoulder, watching the stars blur past. And I let myself think back, not just to the crash, the ritual, the fights, but the little stuff. Her teasing me about my hacked-together heater, me showing her how to roast an ice rat, the way she'd looked at me when the circle glowed. It had started as a deal. Her freedom, my ticket out, but somewhere in the mess, it had turned into this, whatever this was. A team, maybe a shot at something real. You know, I said, voice low. I used to think Clithera was where I'd cash out, alone, forgotten, buried in snow. Didn't see you coming. Didn't see you either, she murmured, shifting to look up at me, purple eyes close and unguarded. A human talking to mushrooms, saving my life. I thought I'd lost everything, thrown, well, all of it. Then you were there. Guess we're even then, I said, and before I could overthink it, I leaned in, kissing her, soft, slow, tasting that spice on her lips. She kissed back, her hand sliding to my chest, and that buzz flared, electric and alive, but gentle this time, like it had settled into something we didn't need to fight. We pulled apart, breathless, and she smiled, ears glowing bright. Even, she agreed, resting her forehead against mine. For now, I echoed, grinning, and we sat there, tangled up, the ship carrying us into whatever came next. Neutral space, next corp, Drin. It had all hit soon enough, but right then, it didn't matter. I've been a fugitive, a loner, a guy with nothing but a bunker and a past. Now I had her, this ship, a chance. Clithera was a million miles back, a speck I'd never see again, and good riddance. Maybe I'd revisit it someday, see if those ice rats missed me, but not now. Now was her hand in mine, the stars ahead, and a future we'd right together, one warp jump at a time. The console beeped, pulling us back, and Zyra straightened, checking it with a frown. Hub's close, she said, all business again, but her fingers lingered on mine. Ready, born ready, I said, standing with her, feeling lighter than I had in years. Let's see what this galaxy's got. She nodded, smirking, and we turned to the viewport, the hum steady under us, the unknown stretching out wide. I didn't know if it'd be fights or freedom, Drin's revenge, or a quiet corner somewhere, but I didn't care. We'd started as a crash and a contract, two strangers running from our own ghosts. But now we were more, partners, maybe something bigger, forged in Clithera's ice and Serathian fire. The stars blurred on, and I figured, hell, if the universe wanted to throw more at us, let it try. We'd handle it, step by step, and if it didn't like that, well, too bad. We'd found each other in the dust and dark, and that was enough to keep going.